I want to ask about the violence against trans women. Last month, Jaliyah Jamar, an African-American trans woman, was murdered in Kansas City, Kansas. She's at least the 19th transgender person to be murdered in the U.S. this year. 13 died from gun violence. The majority are women of color. Laverne Cox, you've long spoken out on this issue. Talk about the climate in this country today.
It is really hard for me to continue to talk about the murders of trans women of color. I was talking to my makeup artist, Deja, who's also openly trans, early yesterday, and I told her, when I started transitioning medically in 1998, that violence, that this was a reality in my life in 1998, that there were trans people being murdered all around me, and this insane fear, will I be next? I remember going to a memorial for Amanda Milan, a trans woman who was murdered in the early 2000s here in New York City. She was stabbed outside of the Port Authority. And for my entire life as a trans woman, for 21 years, I have been hearing about, witnessing, going to memorials, going to Trans Days of Remembrance, and the trauma of that is, I don't actually even have words for the trauma of that. And I think about just Black people in general who have watched our people be murdered in the streets and the collective trauma of that. And I disassociate it from it so much because it's too much. It is way too much. And we live in a culture that consistently stigmatizes trans people, tell us that we aren't who we say we are. When I read the Alliance Defending Families brief on this Amy Stevens case, they bent over backwards to not use female pronouns to refer to Amy Stevens. There is this insistence in misgendering her. And what underlines most of discrimination against trans people is the insistence that we are always and only the gender we were assigned at birth, that we're somehow fraudulent. And when we have an administration, when we have government policies that continually stigmatize us, it makes it okay for the person on the street who sees a trans person and decides that we should not exist anymore. And it is just, I'm really at a loss because I know it's intersectional. I know that it's about employment. I know it's about healthcare. I know it's about homelessness and having access to all of these things to keep us out of harm's way that so many of us don't have access to. The unemployment rate in the trans community is 3 times the national average, 4 times that for trans people of color. The majority of us make less than $10,000 a year. And so when you cannot make a living, you find yourself in street economies. You find yourself homeless. That makes you more of a target of violence. And so there's so many things that we have to do as a culture to end this violence. And showing up tomorrow at the Supreme Court, letting your friends and family know that it is not okay to discriminate against trans people, that when we are living our lives, so many times just walking down the street as a Black trans woman, people saw it as some sort of affront to them when men would find themselves attracted to me because I was walking down the street, and they would get upset about that. I talked a lot about Alon Nettles' case, and she was just walking down the street, a Black trans woman in 2013, and 2 men catcalled her, realized she was trans, and beat her until she died. We should not be killed simply for being who we are. We deserve civil rights. We deserve to be able to work and to live and to thrive. And so the targeting that this administration has done, one of the very first things that Jeff Sessions did in his Justice Department in February 2017, was rescind the guidelines that the Obama administration set forth for transgender children in the United States of America. And then the military ban happened, and then so many of these other things. And that consistently sends a message that it is okay to discriminate against us. I think part of this is the backlash against the unprecedented visibility we have in the media now. Trans people are coming forward and saying, this is who I am. I have a right to exist. We've always existed, and now we're coming out of the shadows. And as we come out of the shadows, people want to force us back into the dark, onto back pages. And we're saying, no, we deserve a right to live in the light. And that's all we want.